Good afternoon. Hello, one and all, wherever you might be. It is Tuesday, 7/7. For those of you looking for superior meanings in numerology, 7/7 is one digit short of being a triple master number, but 77 is okay. But let's look at the year. The year is a 4-year, okay? Good afternoon on this 7/7 in a 4-year. So what does that add up to? 14 and 4 is 18, so it's a 9-day, as it were. Anyway, it is Coffee Break Live Update, only I'm having green tea. I like to, let you know what it is I'm imbibing in at any given moment. So it is, let's see. It's an interesting time, post-eclipse, post all the activity of the eclipses. And astrologically speaking, there's not much happening right now, except we still have 6 planets retrograde. So let's just get right into the main topic of the day that I have posted earlier, which is the myth of power. Okay, and this has been something I've not struggled with, but I've had questions about all my life. See, astrologically speaking, I belong to the Pluto in Leo generation, which was born in the mid-1940s to the mid-1950s. Now, the mystic and seer and channeler Edgar Cayce once described people born during that era as the old soul Atlanteans returning once again. For another crack at not sinking a continent or ruining the planet. So they really had their work cut out for them, karmically speaking, according to Edgar Cayce, that this generation born during the time, essentially, which Edgar never mentioned, the time of Pluto in Leo, a generational cycle, would struggle with issues of power, personal and otherwise. Now, this generation went on to become the hippie movement, in the mid-60s, and sort of found that they no longer bought into the power over game in society and the cultures, especially in the United States. And this was all during the Uranus and Pluto in Virgo cycle. So it was a very interesting thing that a lot of the things that we grew up understanding around the nature of power have always been about, personal power or individual power or power over. Very little bit about power with. I mean, supposedly that's what politics is about, is sharing power and cooperating, but very seldom does that ever come to any kind of happy fruition or happy ending. So it was interesting. I picked up a book off my bookshelf this morning that I haven't touched probably for the better part of 15 or 20 years. And it was written by a guy named Tony Stubbs. And he wrote this book called The Ascension Handbook. Now, it has a lot of good, interesting things about ascension in it and what that means. What I liked about it at the time when I read it, which was in 1995, and right in the throes of the Kundalini awakening, is that his descriptions of ascension, his spiritual concepts, I shouldn't say he was channeling the entire book, supposedly from an ancient Egyptian priest named Serapis Bey, or Serapis, and the whole thing has a different tone from what you normally find in light worker language or New Age stuff. In fact, it kind of pokes a little fun at New Age in a very gentle way. But the whole middle part of the book, there's one chapter called The Three Myths, the three great myths. And one's the myth of love, the myth of truth, and the myth of power. And so I'm focusing on the power one today, because in the midst of everything that we're experiencing, that we're seeing out there, that we're feeling inside, it does sometimes appear that everything else is empowered to affect us in certain ways. And in other times, we may feel like, wow, we're really on a high, we're feeling creative, we're feeling empowered, things are going our way, so to speak. And so, as a result, we feel like we're empowered, we're feeling not invincible, but certainly impervious to most of what's going on. It doesn't last all that long. Sometimes, doubts will creep in, or things won't go right. And under Mercury retrograde and 5 other planets retrograde, it's a miracle that we're all still standing, with all of the cosmic energy stuff going on. And as I described last week, I live near a local fighter air base, an fighter wing for the United States Air Force, and they've decided to fly over and say hi right now. Sorry if you can hear that. So there's another extension or a manifestation of power, very masculine, very, very political, a fighter bomber, F-16, going over. And so this whole thing about the power thing for Pluto and Leo generation people, and even I think still today, it's like sometimes we feel to exercise power, we have to get out in the streets, we have to protest, we have to, posture ourselves in social media in such a way that people won't pick on us or bully us in any way. Sometimes we feel that it's a way to validate who we are. Sometimes power can play very subtle tricks and games on our awareness and our consciousness, and we get lost in it. One of the things that I saw kind of growing up in during my awakening process, my third awakening, is people get very wrapped up doing affirmations. I'm going to do a lot of affirmations. I'm going to do a lot of I am stuff, and I'm going to feel really good. I'm going to feel really good about me and who I am and what I'm going to go for and what I want and everything. Now, this wonderful little book, this tiny little paperback, the Ascension Handbook, which is falling apart. That's how many times it's been thumbed through. But one of the things about power that he describes in here made a lot of sense to me. And it has to do with the fact that he breaks it down to power over and power with. And power over I described, which is sort of like powerful men, powerful women, powerful nations. And power over always came from a deep-seated sense of separation and a resulting confusion around what the nature of power is. So if you define the world using only the 5 senses, then power is defined by what you can see, touch, feel, and hear, and taste. So you see power as dominance or power over, potentially, or power over the environment, which we have seen in the environmental destruction, power over self. The way societies define power and focus it in just a few individuals. Societies set up organizations to prevent its misuse. It doesn't always work. But then you have watchdogs who scrutinize the power holders, all right? So it's power over power over power. A society or group defines power in terms of ability to direct the use of resources such as money, human lives, armies, weapons, food, raw materials. The greatest fear is the loss of that power to someone else or some other group. Power over always reinforces and deepens the idea and sense of separation, because you can't exercise power over others without making them others. Be it based on a religion, ideology, politics, ethnicity, skin color, or gender. And we see this playing out with the racial tensions and everything. So when our personalities look outside of ourselves at power, it turns material things and other personalities upside down. It leads to a pecking order of more powerful than me, or I'm more powerful than them. Not feeling good enough is a form of separation, and it's also a form of self-disempowerment. Power with is different because it's first and foremost comes from and works with the idea of spirit, or source energy, and with your fellow human beings. So ironically, the first step to having a power with experience with other people is to surrender. Now it sounds like giving up and acquiescing to something that has power over you, and it isn't just the same old story but with a different overlord. Is it just the same old story? Power over requires submission of one to another in which both parties feel separate. Power over works only when that separation exists, that sense of separation. However, that problem of power is based on who you are and who you define yourself to be as a personality, separate from spirit, and there's the potential of losing that power. Other people could steal your resources, age can steal your strength, illness can steal your health. But power based on what you are cannot be stolen or compromised. The power of who you are can. The power of what you are cannot. So ironically, the single most powerful thing that any of us can do to become human fully is to surrender to Source. And that doesn't mean acquiescing. It doesn't mean giving up what you are. You have to give up who you are and who you think you are. A lot of the decision makings around power is based on a fear of harming someone or fear of being seen as arrogant or being, abusive by others. But the other problem is when you come from that personality place of power is that you sometimes say, I am not good enough. I cannot be good enough. I shouldn't do that. So you end up sitting on the sidelines. You end up doing nothing. You end up marginalizing yourself. But in so doing, you have made a tacit agreement with other people to, they have that energy that is in them of feeling marginalized or not good enough come up too. And so pretty soon you've got collusion happening at a resonance frequency. And that collusion is, I'm not good enough and you're not good enough, but maybe I'm a little better than you, whatever. There's a lot of that in social media. You see it on Instagram. You see the vying for the addiction to needing attention, to feel important, to feel power. You don't need that. Power in its truest form is very humble and very quiet and also very vulnerable. That's true power. It's being expressed through your awareness, your honesty, and your love. Those are the three things. So power in its most purest form is knowing when to act not based on what your personality or your ego says, but what Spirit says within you. And at first you might think that what you're hearing or what you're feeling isn't you. It's, some old belief. That gets into the area of the myth of truth and beliefs. And beliefs are things that we make decisions about that aren't really true in an absolute sense. So when we get clear about what our truth is, then power flows from that. And things can become a lot easier, all right? Things can become a lot more fluid. Things can occur at the right time with the right people in the right way. And power then becomes a very, very benign influence that doors open for you. Things happen. Changes appear, and they're not always traumatic and they're not always difficult. In fact, they can be downright pleasant. I think one of the things that we have still to deal with is the idea that something isn't worth having unless it's worth being sacrificing a lot and being in pain and struggling and striving. That somehow it's all up to you, as an individual. Days of that kind of individualism is over and has been for a while. So it's very, very unhelpful and non-beneficial to construct your reality tunnels, your bubbles, based on who you think you are, with forgetting what you are. And what you are is a multidimensional aspect, a multidimensional being coexisting in multiple realities at the same time as an extension of source consciousness, manifesting in a physical plane such as this as a fractal. You're basically a fractal of your own great multidimensional self, which is also a fractal of all that is. So how can power be harmful in those circumstances? And that power is not something that you use or that you need. You don't need anything. In fact, desiring everything that you want to desire is great, but don't need it. That just keeps it at bay. It keeps it at arm's length. Because the universe, as an energy system, senses need or want as, oh, well, they need it, they want it, so I'll just give them more of the experience of needing and wanting it. You know, you end up going around in circles. That isn't a right application of power either. It's not about personal power. It's not about personal empowerment. It's about aligning with power with. Power with what? Source, with heart, with love. So power is not dangerous or stupid or, something that to avoid. We avoid enough things. We avoid uncomfortable negative emotions. We avoid looking at shadow. We avoid, taking in or looking at objectively information that we may find offensive or difficult. When we do that, we are actually not observing the consensus reality as it is, only as we fear it to be. And that is really one of the most important things to in this journey of becoming the wholeness of your being, is to recognize that you're all of it too, all right? It's part of you that's in everything, and everything that's in you. But if you are focused too much on consensus reality experience, then you're going to absorb and magnify or amplify or re-amplify all those lower negative emotions or attitudes or beliefs. That's not where you want to, be. So you unplug all the plugs that are plugged into those jacks, and you plug them into the jacks that you want to say: joy, compassion, co-creation with ease, ecstasy, awareness, knowing, which is the science of faith, and right use of power. And power becomes a friendly reminder of the co-creation that you have with the universe or with Source, or whatever name you want to put on him, her, it. Okay? So that's basically the message today, is that there's a lot of power stuff going to be coming down. All right? Mars is in Aries. Issues of power and how to apply it, how to use it, is going to be up for the next 6 months, 5 months roughly, till mid-January. So it's very important to kind of get real with what power is and not be afraid of it, and also not to allow your personality or ego to run away with the idea of being, I am a powerful being, I'm the great and powerful Wizard of Oz. It sounds comical that way. But one of the things that we're going to get with the upcoming Mars-Chiron conjunction in Aries is a healing around the very thing I'm talking about today. Power. And power is not to be used for, and should we say, not to be used exclusively as a means of survival and acquisition, which is a lot of what the Mars and Aries energy is about. It is to be used to assist the evolutionary journey of others and for the planet and for the species towards something that is a best outcome, that is a greater outcome, that is a potential, Garden of Eden. All right, there we go. Return to the garden. So power, we have it because we have access to it. It's sort of like in this part of the school, part of the mystery school around, dark spirits or dark force energies. You do not do battle with that kind of consciousness or those entities from a place of, I've got the power. You're going to get into a power struggle with these beings, which they absolutely love. And then it becomes, a huge wrestling match. And, it bonds that conflict energy that comes out of power that is personalized, and makes it just as strong as it would be when you fall in love with somebody and you feel that connection, all right? That's beautiful and blissful and creative and ecstatic and all the rest of it. But this is the flip side of that. So you want to realize that you're not the power. Consciousness, awareness, light, and love are the superior power in any situation. How do you get into that? How do you get to that place? You surrender. Say, Spirit becomes your friend. Spirit, it's like, Neil Donald Walsh wrote a book, Companionship or Friendship with God, something like that. there isn't anything in the universe, there isn't anything inside of you that doesn't want to help. And so when you trust yourself that implicitly, that unleashes the power. That's what unleashes the power. You trust in your vulnerability, you trust in your humility, you trust in, not false humility of like, I'm not good enough, I don't think I should do this. Or be this, all right? That is where we're going to work through this process over the next week or so, all right? This is, about a week's time, and it's going to culminate, oddly enough, on Bastille Day, July 14th, France's Independence Day. So Mars conjunct Chiron, issues of power, issues of identity with power, relationship with power, relationship with, either power tamed and under the control of spirit, under the control of consciousness, directed humanely, benignly, or power that's gone out of control, that's become destructive, that's become harmful, that's become hurtful. So it is very, very essential during this next week or so that a lot of us will, may be feeling that we need to examine, where our sense of powerlessness is in the world situation, whether it's your employment has disappeared because of, COVID, or you feel when you go outside that you're under threat, that emotionally, maybe one part of your consciousness is going, I know I'm going to be okay, and another part of your body is reacting and contracting, and your energy is getting smaller and tighter. And wondering, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. A lot of what, we call residual karma. Here we are, we're talking about the karma thing, but the karma thing is just the manifestation of consequences that were born a long time ago. It's sort of mechanical, it's mechanistic. And some of these things are just needing to play themselves out, If there's any truth to the idea that when the Mayan long count calendar ended on December 21st, 2012, that was the end of karma. Well, I think you can choose the end of karma at any given moment for yourself and for all beings, So that comes from a place of awareness that karma is a pinball machine, a fact, of choices and circumstances and events and experiences that were created long before you ever arrived here in this lifetime. And sometimes they just show up in the space, and then you sit there and scratch your head and going, what the heck was that all about? Was that my fault? Did I do that? Did I call that into my space? Boy, welcome to the Disempowerment Club. That's one sure way to put you in a downward spiral, and then you can feel bad about it. That's not going to help you at all right? That's not going to help anybody. So sit with this idea of power and what it means, and examine it. Maybe look at your beliefs around it. Maybe look at, where you've got issues about power, or people who have power and who aren't using it in the best way. That's what's up now. That's what the middle part of this month is going to be about, because we're going to get into this next cycle in August through the end of the year, where Mars, in tight, tense aspects to other things, is going to show us where this energy of taking action is best utilized and most beneficial, and where it is not as beneficial as it could be. All right, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it there. So we're going to come back again on Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock for another update. I'm going to have some juicier things to talk about. Maybe we'll talk about the myth of love or the myth of truth, according to Mr. Tony Stubbs and his oracle. All right, I like the idea of using oracle than channel. It's a bit more authentic in terms of how we interface with wisdom and the context in the universe. The wisdom that's in the universal mind. That's kind of a nice way to think about it, or maybe it's a more accurate way to think about it. One of the things is, with Saturn definitely logged in at 29 degrees of Capricorn and retrograding, it's feeling like we have a lot of homework to do, and we're not going to get to go out and play with our friends until that homework is done. you know, that your free will resistance to this is absolutely futile. So as we go forward in the months ahead until Saturn gets out of Capricorn and into Aquarius for good for the rest of your lifetime in all likelihood, we're going to feel this constant, like, I need to work on this and I need to work on that. And I'm going to turn that around and say the empowered use of this power that I'm talking about today, of power with, is saying, okay, Spirit, what do I need to understand here? And how can we dissolve it and transmute it? All right, so why wait? Transmute now. Don't get into processing and this, that, and the other. Look at things. Be honest with yourself about the beliefs you have around power and the beliefs about how other people have power or don't have power. And get clear. What an opportunity. This is a really grand time for that. So I'm at my end of my 30 minutes. I'm going to stop right here. If anybody has questions or comments and wants to get back in touch. By the way, I heard from a number of people after the one last week, Thursday, about people requesting the spiritual hygiene tools and asking questions about what's like going on with the geophysical changes on the planet. How is it affecting your physical being, your organs, your nervous system, and so forth. Still welcoming questions about that. And anybody who needs deeper work with that, then please get in touch. I'd love to help out. I'm going to still come back to talk on Thursday, hopefully, about the potential bring back Kundalini Reiki and as a teaching, as an attunement process, and a couple other goodies. But, you know, there's so much going on. It takes a while, and you have to be patient with yourself, which is also a very spiritual, wise use of power, is letting things unfold as they need to. This is not a good time to push against the wind, you know, or it might blow you off your feet, all right? Ask for help. Always ask for help. Nobody's got to be the rugged individualist in this situation at all. And so the U.S. Air Force is coming back for another flyover, so I'm going to say adios. Have a great day. Have a great Wednesday. See you on Thursday afternoon, and blessings on your journey. Thanks for tuning in.